In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what gear keeps you alive when everything falls apart. And it's not what you think. You spent months researching, hundreds of hours watching reviews, reading forums, comparing plate carriers. You dropped serious money on a full kit because you understood something most people don't. When things go sideways, you want to be ready. You want to look hard. You want bad actors to take one look at you and decide it's not worth it. Here's the problem with that logic. It's completely backwards. Here's what the first 72 hours actually look like for the fully kitted out guy. Hour 1, you gear up, you look hard, you feel ready. By hour 12, three separate groups have clocked you moving through their territory. They're not attacking, they're watching. By hour 24, they've mapped your route and found the choke point you didn't notice. By hour 72, you never make it home, and the people who got your gear are now using it to do the same thing to the next person. The gear didn't save you. The display killed you, and the worst part is you built this threat for yourself one piece of kit at a time. So here's the first thing you do. Cover it, right now, before anything else. An oversized jacket over your plate carrier changes your threat profile immediately. That's not the whole solution, but it buys you time to think about the rest. Now, you might think the real issue is just picking better spots to move through. But the threat doesn't start when you move, it starts the moment someone sees what you're wearing. And here's the mechanism that makes your kit a target before you ever open your mouth. Your brain has a built-in filter that prioritizes information you're actively thinking about, like suddenly seeing red cars everywhere the day after you buy one. That same filter runs in every hostel you pass. They're constantly scanning for anomalies, for things that don't fit the background. And in a world that's fallen apart, certain things don't fit at all. A clean plate carrier, a high-end combat site, an expensive tactical chest rig fully loaded, that doesn't blend in, it screams. In a collapsed environment, everyone looks like hell. Torn clothes, hollow eyes, no sleep, rationing food, that's the baseline. So when you walk through looking like you just stepped off a military base, every single threat within eyeshot runs the same calculation. That person has food, that person has medicine, that person has ammo, and that person has the gear to protect all of it, which means there's more where that came from. You didn't look like a hard target, you looked like a jackpot. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what experienced hostile groups do with that information. They don't fight you face to face, because your gear tells them you'd probably win that fight, and they're not stupid, so instead they follow you, quietly, patiently. They map your route. They identify your choke point, maybe a bridge, a narrow alley, a road that cuts through a gap in the buildings. So by the time you reach that bridge, four people are already positioned above you, waiting at angles where your plate carrier doesn't cover anything. You don't get jumped. You get ambushed by people who had time to prepare, pick their position, and hit you specifically because your gear told them you were worth the effort. This isn't theory. This is documented human behavior from the worst urban collapse in recent European history. Think about the siege of Sarajevo during the Bosnian War, 1992 to 1995, a modern European city under siege for almost 4 years. According to the ICTY in historical research, approximately 11,541 people were killed, including over 1,500 children. And the survivors, the ones who made it through the entire siege and lived to document it, they talked about something that flipped the prepper playbook completely. Civilians who got their hands on military-grade gear, plate carriers, tactical vests, proper kit, were among the first targeted by roving armed groups, not because they were a threat, because they were a resource. The gear communicated what else that person was carrying and what they might have stashed at home. The civilians who made it through had a completely different strategy. They called it looking like just another survivor. Worn clothes, nothing shiny, nothing that read as military, expensive or tactical. They deliberately looked empty, defeated, not worth the risk or the effort, and roving groups walked right past them. Don't look like an operator, look like a survivor. That was the actual working doctrine in a real 4-year collapse. Not a prepper forum theory, not a YouTube hypothetical, lived experience from people getting shot at in the streets of a civilized country while the rest of Europe watched on the news. But here's where it gets worse. Your gear isn't just telling hostiles you're armed. It's telling them exactly how much is waiting for them back at your home base. And the number they're calculating is going to hit you somewhere uncomfortable. A Cry-JPC plate carrier, a high-end combat site, an expensive tactical chest rig fully loaded. You're sitting somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000 just in visible gear. And in a collapsed environment, that number doesn't represent money. It represents a hidden supply depot. Because nobody burns that kind of cash on the carrier and skimps on what goes in it. Your kit communicates food stores, it communicates medical supplies, it communicates ammo, spare mags, and probably more gear back wherever you came from. You're not a hard target. You're a treasure map with legs. And hostile groups aren't working alone. They're coordinating. They have scouts. One person sees you, radios ahead, and by the time you hit your next checkpoint, there are 4 people waiting at the natural choke point you didn't even clock because you were focused on moving fast. Your gear made that coordination worth the effort. Your gear made the ambush worth the risk. Here's what makes this hit hardest. Most of you watching this have been optimizing hard, saving money, doing the research, building out the kit piece by piece. The entire time, the assumption was that better gear equals better survival odds. That's not wrong as a concept, but it's catastrophically wrong as a display strategy. Now, you might think the gray man concept, the idea of blending into the background so completely you become invisible, is just about normal everyday life. Blending into a crowd at the grocery store, that's how most prepper circles talk about it. But what Sarajevo taught us is that it applies even harder in a collapse, because the threat calculus shifts completely. In normal life, a tactical vest reads as enthusiast. In a collapse, it reads as ambush me at the bridge. Your gear doesn't disappear, you just stop wearing it on the outside. Concealed carry exists for a reason. Load-bearing equipment worn under an oversized jacket exists for a reason. That reason is that the most dangerous thing you can do in a hostile environment is advertise what you have. The second most dangerous thing is advertising that you can defend it, because that just tells hostiles to bring more people and pick a better position. The real kit for a collapsed environment is boring. It's worn, it looks filthy. Nothing reflects light, nothing has mole webbing visible, nothing reads as expensive. You want to look like you've already been picked over? You want to look like the people who got to you first didn't find anything worth taking? Because if you look like a survivor who barely made it, the math changes for every threat you encounter. The risk-reward of targeting you drops to almost zero, not because you're weak, because you look broke. That's the actual hard target doctrine from a real collapse. Not looking dangerous, looking worthless. So here's your gut check moment. You've been building the wrong kit for the wrong threat model. The good news is, nothing you bought is wasted. The plate carrier still works. The optic still works. The loadout still works. You just have to rethink when it's visible and when it's not. What the environment looks like before you put it on. And whether looking ready to fight is actually your best move, or whether looking like there's nothing to fight you for keeps you alive longer. The gear doesn't kill you. The display kills you. Now that you know why your kit gets you killed on the outside, the next question is what you actually build underneath it. I broke down the full gray man loadout, everything you need and nothing you don't in this video right here.